Well, how's everyone doing on this lovely Saturday? Now, of course, I'm sitting up here saying lovely Saturday, and I'm taping this on Wednesday. So hopefully we won't have a thunderstorm or something today, or on Saturday, which is actually when you're seeing this. Let's talk, folks. Let's talk. You know, I'm pretty damned upset. Quite frankly, I've been upset ever since 2016, to tell you the truth. But I have really gotten upset. We have a problem, people. And our problem is this. Do we believe in our form of government, or don't we? It's really that simple. Now, we've all had various problems with our government. I mean, people of color. I mean, come on, let's face it. Let's face the facts. A lot of bad things have happened. A lot of mistakes have been made. But what's the old expression about throwing the baby out with the bathwater? We don't need to do that, people. We truly don't. I think it's sad that a person, because of psychological disposition, feels that the only way that they can bring meaning to their life is to basically destroy things, destroy people, destroy families. And I look at this guy, Trump, and yeah, the conversation is about Trump as usual. And I know that some people kind of get tired of that. Guess what? This is your country. And you need to be aware of what's going on. And don't make faces about it, because believe it or not, there are a lot of people in this country. They're not aware of it. They think that nothing happened last January 6th. And that's a crying shame. You know, that's like folks out there in so-called middle America, right? Well, I trust Donald Trump more than I trust Jesus Christ. And that person who said that's an evangelical. So that shows you how the mindset of a lot of Trump supporters. And I think it's sad, really, because Miss you out there in Nebraska and you in Alabama and you folks over there in Utah, guess what? You don't know a damn thing about Donald Trump. Those of us that live, especially here in the tri-state area, we know Donald. We know Donald, we know his family for years. And this is not a question about whether or not, well, did you hang out with Donald? Well, in my case, personally, that's not I can't say, yes, I did, but by the same token, I can't say, no, I didn't hang out with him either. Have him and I been at the same venues? Yes. Okay? And he was a jerk then, and he's just grown into a bigger jerk. It's funny, when you look at his pictures, right? He wasn't a bad-looking, younger guy. But one thing, you didn't see the hate that you see now when you look at his face. A person could be handsome, they could be bland looking, but you look at the person's face and you see this quantitative evil this quantitative hatred in the person's face. That's something that you need to worry about. And if you find yourself attracted to a person like that, then you really need to check yourself out, quite frankly. And see, that's what these folks in other parts of the country that claim to be Trump supporters, I don't think that's something that they ever really did. See, because as Donald got older, especially as he got into his 40s and 50s, bit by bit, you could see the hatred coming out. And it wasn't, just a thing about, oh, well, I don't like Hispanics, I don't like blacks, Jews are only good for counting money, that sort of thing. There was a visceral evil about this guy. Now, those of us here in New York, we saw it. People who were his close acquaintances will tell you that there was a change that came about. I mean, the kid started off bad, right? When you read about his father and what have you. But he took on the personification of his pop, and he's just made it worse. Somebody wrote a book, or it was written in a book about Trump. Everything Donald touches turns to, well, let's just say, everything that Donald touches turns into crap. The guy who wrote it used another term. I'm quite sure you can figure out what it is. Because, yeah, we use profanity on this show on occasion, but we try not to get too deep into profanity. But, yeah, you look at Donald and you look at what he's done, and everything that this guy touches turns to crap. I'm not even going to go into his thing about his many marriages, okay? But remember Trump steaks, right? That went in the garbage. Trump Airlines, that went in the garbage. Trump shirts and suits, right? His clothing line, that went in the garbage. And that seems to be what this guy is about. Everything that he touches. And let's not forget our favorite, Trump University. Look, anytime you're so screwed up that the state courts in New York tell you you can't have a charity. Now, what's a charity? A charity is an organization set up to give away money, right? Remember, charities don't exist to make money. Charities are just the opposite. Charities exist to help people. In other words, to give away money, help, assistance, what have you. And Trump, his whole family, they've been told, no, you cannot be in any position where you give away money. Now, you think about that. I'm not talking about, well, he's not a great person in economics or, being an accountant or what have you. I mean, I can dig that. That's something on the side, basically. There were a lot of great, dynamic, powerful business people who I would not want to hire as an accountant, okay? But Trump's case is, no, you cannot give away money. We can't trust you to give away money. Remember, during the campaign, this was the guy that he was supposed to give money to veterans, and he had to be dragged in front of the media spotlight because he wasn't going to give it up at first, even though that's what he said he was going to do. This is the Donald Trump that we know here in the tri-state area. And we tried, well, some of us tried to warn the rest of the country. I think that we should have done a better job at trying to warn the rest of the country, quite frankly. And that's what happened. You know, what does the rest of the world, especially the Western world, can you imagine how afraid they are of a second Trump presidency? I mean, this is the guy that regularly gets in the bed with Putin. Look at the difference. I'm not even going to talk about whether you agree with Biden and how he's trying to handle the Ukrainian situation. But just look at the interplay between Joe and Putin. You don't see Biden jumping around at Putin's heels like a little puppy dog. And folks, we live in the 21st century with the technology. You can look it up for yourself, and you can watch and see how every time Trump met with Putin, you could see who was the superior person and who was the inferior person, who acted like they had a message to put out there and who acted like a starstruck teenager in the face of greatness. And I can tell you, and you could see for yourself, that was always Donald. Donald even denigrated our own military and intelligence services publicly in front of the whole world, the whole media of the world, and Putin. And he generally what he said was, hey, look, my military and my intel, they're full of crap. They don't know what they're talking about. This from a guy that when he had the chance to serve his country, Daddy paid this doctor 5 times to get him out of the draft. And see, that's another thing. When I hear about, well, yeah, they had some veterans out there beating up cops in support of Trump, that really blows my mind. Because as a veteran, we took an oath. Above all, our oath is not to the flag. It's not to our mommy and daddy. It's not to the guy who happens to be president, the guy or gal who happens to be president. We take an oath to the Constitution. First and foremost. So when I hear, especially from military people or former military people, well, yeah, the president, told us to be out here. Donald told us to come. My commander-in-chief told me to come. No, we don't play that in this country. And that's one thing that the founding fathers were very specific about. You have one obligation, and that is the Constitution of the United States. What would be, what's a fit punishment? Well, those veterans who broke the law, who broke their oath, if they're 20 or 30-year people, why should this government continue to pay them? They broke their oath. to the Constitution. That's the same thing for Congress, those Congress people that supported Trump. They've also taken the oath. Why should you be allowed to sit in Congress if you can't follow through on the oath that you took? Nobody forced you to take that oath. You took that oath of your own free will. And for Donald Trump, you're going to break it. No, you don't deserve it. That general that was always in Trump's hip pocket, does he deserve his retirement pay? And please, I don't want to hear this, oh, well, he served the country and risked his life and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I get that. But when you break the law, don't you deserve to be punished for it? I think that's something that we all need to start considering. Listen, we went through a lot of hell from the 50s, the 60s, 70s. But it was like we always knew where we were going. We were fighting for something. You talk about the Black Panthers, the various student organizations, and just people out in the street demonstrating against injustice. How can I put this? You see, we were not fighting to destroy the country. We were fighting to be a part of the country. And that's a big hell of a difference. Now, some of these clown Congress people, they try to, they always play that equivocating game, Well, look what they did. That nonsense. Oh, well, look at what happened over the summer, all the demonstrations. Well, guess what? Just about all those demonstrations were peaceful demonstrations until some interplay between the people demonstrating and the law enforcement of that area put a match to the gunpowder. That's number one. And you have to remember that the basic thing, especially with Mr. Floyd, that was about a guy, a man of color, who was literally, not figuratively, literally strangled on worldwide television, showing America, showing the world, yeah, this is what America is about. We strangle black people, black men, on television, brought to you live. And you're going to tell us about patriotism? And I'll tell you something else, too. I think what has a lot of folks on the right, what has them so upset is because this time around, you had whites that joined the struggle for justice back in the 60s. You had white folks out there in the front lines. As a matter of fact, the American Catholic Church played a vital role in the struggle for freedom in this country during the 60s. You had priests, some getting killed, beaten up because of this struggle for freedom and human dignity. I don't know what's happened to the American church over the last 15 years or so. But yeah, the church was out there. I saw rabbis out there. I saw imams out there. This is in the 60s now. But what really took me away was the fact that the huge amount of young white people that were out there marching side by side with blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, Asians. That's what has the right wing so upset. And I was proud to see that. I say that as an American. I was proud to see that. And that is what has them so hyper. The fact that you had thousands of people demonstrating in front of the American embassy in New Zealand, in Sydney, Australia, not to forget France, Germany, Britain, Spain, the whole world, especially the whole Western world. That's what has the right wing so upset. Because they know that our struggle has merit in the eyes of the world. So don't talk this nonsense about USA, USA. That's just a chant. But what the hell does it mean? And see, that's one of the sad things about this right-wing movement. They don't have the ability to answer straight questions with straight answers. You ever see them on TV? When they're yelling, "Way to go, Brandon," as if they're, mocking Joe Biden. Which, quite frankly, how the hell you compared Joe Biden with Donald Trump, I'll never know. But you ask them, well, why? Joe Biden and his communist radical ideas. Oh, I get so sick and tired of hearing that, pardon me, bullshit. Because I have not yet heard one of these people say, okay, well, why is it communist, socialist, radical? He wants to feed children. Since when is that radical? You see these evangelicals out there with this, he's doing his communist thing, his commie thing. Well, wait a minute. You're an evangelical, or you claim to be. I thought the big thing about you guys was Jesus Christ. Well, didn't you ever read the Sermon on the Mount? Feeding the hungry, looking out for the poor, helping the sick. So what makes that radical? See, this is what really shocks people about the American right. This is what shocks people around the world. Because it's like they've lost the capacity for reasoned thought. And as far as, calling things communist, socialist, I really get tired of hearing people shoot their mouth off about things that evidently they have no idea what the hell they're talking about, or what do the things that they say, what's it mean, okay? Wishing to feed people, to feed children, to make sure that everyone has decent health care, that has nothing to do with being communist, socialist, or Ronald McDonald the Clown. Has nothing to do with that. Look, to break it down simply, socialism just means that we set up organizations, groups, to do things that we as individuals cannot do for ourselves. Do you have a sewer in your apartment? Do you have a whole sewer system? Now, most people that I know don't have a whole sewer system. So we develop, incorporate, build, whatever you want to call it, an organization that basically takes care of our human waste. In some parts of the country, we have people allowed to have firearms. My opinion, you got too many in this country, but let's put that on the side for a moment. If I live in a place like South Dakota or North Dakota, yeah, I'm probably going to have about 5 or 6 rifles in the closet and some hand weapons, and that's cool. So if somebody interferes with me or my family, if somebody comes to attack my home, yeah, I can take them down. But most parts of the country, it's not like that, right? That's why we have police forces. Because we need an organization that can help the community defend itself against bad guys. And it's much more efficient and safe to have an organization that exists for that. That's why we have policemen and police women. I disagree with those on the left that say we should disband police departments. No, I don't agree with that. I understand the frustration and anger that drives people in some communities to say that. I can understand a person saying that out of anger, because so many people that get killed are usually people, get killed by the police are usually people of color, or on the surface, low-income white people, and that these people are unarmed. And when you see this time and time and time after time, yeah, sometimes you're going to get tired. Oh, man, the hell with these damn police. Let's get rid of them. Don't give them a dime. But that's wrong. That would be a wrong action to take. It's just like me personally. If you touch me or mine, my first inclination is to kill you, or at least try to. I'm not Rambo, okay? But you're not going to hurt one of mine and just walk away whistling. Not if I can help it. Even if I risk my life to even the score. And I'm quite sure that's the way most normal human beings would feel. But that's why we have jurisprudence, we have trials, rules of evidence, all that good stuff, okay? I would have the feeling that, no, just let's have a firing squad of 1, and I will be the firing squad, and I will shoot the person in the head, period. Now, that's how I would feel. But that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it good for society as a whole, which is generally why I am against the death penalty. Are there people that deserve the death penalty? Yes. Have I seen cases where I would be happy to administer the lethal injection or the firing squad myself? That would satisfy, and let's face it, it is vengeance. And justice and vengeance can be the same thing. But it will be wrong of me to act out like that. That's what I would want to do. But as a society, no, because we will be bringing ourselves down to the same level of the stinking animal that committed the crime. And we don't want to have a society like that. That's why we have, as I said, jurisprudence, the law, judges, juries, all that good stuff. That's why we have it. It's so satisfying, emotionally satisfying, to see a child molester that killed and raped a little 8-year-old. To maybe get your hands around his throat and just pull. But I don't want to see our society sink to that level, because that taints all of us, which is why generally I am against the death penalty, okay? But that whole mechanism of justice with the courts and the lawyers and the judges and the juries, prima facie case of evidence and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that is a form of socialism, because we're not, I'm not doing it as an individual. We are doing it as a community with the police and the jurisprudence, okay? That's us. That's us speaking as a community, all right? The same way you have that Social Security card in your pocket when you get to be a certain age, or if you have some type of disability, et cetera, our society says, well, here, will help you to survive, to live. And that's cool, right? But see, that's something that we're doing as a society. That is why it's called Social Security. And just FYI, just so that you know, unemployment insurance, Social Security, right? Medicaid, Medicare. You know where these things come from? These ideas originally, in modern times, here in the Western world, that was developed by one of the most conservative, right-wing countries in Western Europe. That comes from Germany, 1860s, 1870s. What was his name? Chancellor Bismarck, okay? And he had the forethought and the common sense, because at this time, Europe is going through all these changes. You got heavy industrialization coming, right? I mean, not coming, it's there, and it's really starting to take off, the factories, blah, blah, blah. And it was playing hell with working people and the middle class. And you had a lot of different revolutionary movements that would start up, disappear, start back up again. And Bismarck had the good sense to realize, well, listen, those of us that have the money, those of us in the upper class, those of us that live well, who eat well, we better start thinking about a way to kind of, spread the wealth around a little bit. Because if we don't, then all them little peons out there, they're going to get together, and they might just get together and tear us down from our thrones. and from our high places. So that's where you start coming up with workers' compensation, some type of retirement pay, all the good things that we in the Western world enjoy, right? It comes from, the serious right wing. I'm talking about the people who were basically how would you say, the grandfathers and their immediate sons of the Nazi regime. Okay, it wasn't Nazi then, but these were like the grandfathers of the people that became the Nazis, right? So we're talking about some real right-wing territory here, okay? We're talking about the Prussia state, for example. Remember, Germany didn't become a unified country until the 1870s. Before that, it was a collection of Prussia, Munich, Nuremberg. They were like little city-states, basically. Kind of like the way Italy was. And around the same time period, too. That's something interesting to look up. Why in the 1870s somehow Europe started to give birth to countries that became unified, right? But that's what happened. And you have places that were, there's one place in the back of my mind, that whole territory, it was kind of like Greenwich Village in a way, Bohemia, that's it, Bohemia. You kind of like Greenwich Village-like, okay? And then you had your real, right-wing type places like Prussia, okay? And eventually they were able to meld together in the 1870s and become one Germany, right? And this was the place, Prussia, okay? They took the lead in the unification of Germany, or what we now know as Germany. And as I said, they were extremely right-wing, okay? As a matter of fact, Trump and all these other clowns, they were nothing compared to the old Prussians, right? But yet, it was really out of Prussia that we enjoy these things today. America basically adopted what Prussia was doing because the upper ruling class figured it makes sense. You can't have people walking around ignorant, half naked, half starving, right? Working like a dog. You get hurt at work and you're just screwed. What happens to a guy that's 27 years old and he loses a leg in an accident at the factory while he's at work? What happens to that guy? He just basically throw him in front of a church and just say the hell with him? Well, it used to be, that's what used to happen. But the Prussians, with Bismarck, said no. Because if we don't look out for the economically less fortunate, someone else will. And that someone else will probably tear down our institutions and what have you. And you know who else figured that out? Teddy Roosevelt, when he became president. And what was that, 1901. And you know who figured that out after Teddy? His cousin, Franklin, FDR, when he became president in 1932. Bismarck in Germany, Teddy and Franklin here in the United States, all three of them have one thing in common. They all came out of wealthy backgrounds. They were part of the elite, of the economic and educational elite. But they all figured it out. You cannot have a society where you have these huge disparities in wealth because you're just asking for trouble. And they were right. And look what happened here in the United States. First, now Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, he had some ideas along those lines. Unfortunately, he was assassinated before he could bring a lot of that to fruition. He was able to get across the unification of the United States through the railroads. They built Mr. Lincoln his railroads. He also provided for free colleges, for a free college education for the farmers out there in the places that we're looking at today. The Dakotas, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, places like that. Western Illinois, the land-grant colleges, where you didn't have to you paid no tuition or your tuition was such a small amount. See, this is what I'm talking about when I say I'm so damn sick and tired of hearing people that don't know a crap what they're talking about. See, between Lincoln, then you skip it with 1863, 1865, 40, skip 35 years ahead from Lincoln to Teddy Roosevelt. And then you give it about 25 years to Franklin Roosevelt. And that's what made America so strong. And then we were able to get out of the Great Depression, take on the totalitarian monsters of the 30s, Japan and Germany, defeat them, launch the space race, and have a man on the moon by 1969. That's why America was able to do it. And tell you something else, this wasn't just about Republicans versus Democrats. Both parties worked on this. And what happens as you get into the 70s, the right wing of the Republican Party, they become the dominant force. You see, before that, nobody really cared for conservatives. The only really decent conservatives that you had two. I'm named after one of them, believe it or not. Yeah, my dad named me after Robert Taft. Okay, I'll be senator from Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. Bob Taft and William F. Buckley. And these were the folks that were able to, they tried to shape conservatism in the Republican Party in a manner that could leave out the hate. Unfortunately, they were not successful. Okay? Kind of wish they had been, but no, they weren't. They weren't successful in the long run because you see what you have now. But back in the even the 40s, 50s, 60s, conservatives were not all that welcomed in the Republican Party. Eisenhower, General Eisenhower, the guy that fought the Allies all through World War II in Europe. General Eisenhower, who became the Republican president in the early 50s. He was no friend of the conservatives. But what happened after Lincoln lost in '60 to Jack Kennedy, Unfortunately, he got involved with people like Buchanan, who I believe had been one of his young speechwriters, and a few other people, and was it Ken Phillips, I think? And what happens, the conservative movement in the Republican Party, it becomes kind of like a worm, an infection, a low-grade, sneaky infection that got into the bloodstream of the Republican Party. And slowly but surely, over a period of time, they worked to eventually take over the party. And the first thing that they did, they worked to get black people out of the Republican Party. I mean, I'm not saying that they worked to say, okay, niggas get out of the party. I'm not saying that. Although in some parts of the country, that basically is the message that they made sure that to get out there. But they only wanted a certain type of black person in the Republican Party. And they kept working at it until over a period of time, black Republicans, they stopped showing up to the meetings because they were made to feel unwelcome, quite frankly. I saw this happen with my own parents. And the question to me has always been, if my mom and dad had decided to stay up here, up north, in New York, and never moved down south to Virginia, would my dad have continued to be extremely active in the Republican Club as he was back in the 50s, 60s, and the early 70s? Remember, this is the Republican Party of Ed Brooks and Colin Powell. And you talk to people today, a lot of them, they either forgot or they never knew. The black senator from Massachusetts, of all places, Ed Brooks, war hero, spokesman for civil rights. Yeah, that was the Republican Party of the 60s and early 70s. But see, meanwhile, while you have that on the surface, internally, you had the conservatives, like I say, like a low-grade infection, worming their way to leadership positions in the party. And that's what happened to the Republican Party. And I knew, when was that, back in '96, I knew from what I saw, I said, yeah, the folks is right. There's no hope for this party. And that's what happened. They became total, they just kept going right and wouldn't stop. And that is the danger that America faces now. You see, this is not politics. When I do this thing every Saturday, excuse me, I better hurry up because they're going to start spraying again with that disinfectant to try and save us from this virus business. But as I was saying, that's what happened to this country. These folks, like these little clowns that with that way to go brand, that nonsense, okay? How in the hell are you going to attack Joe Biden? That's what I don't understand. Give the man, what are you accusing him of? I'm still waiting to hear it. And I don't think I'm going to get any response back because there's really no response that they could give. Now, Trump was in there. The only thing I remember him doing he gave a huge tax break to the wealthy. I think that was the largest tax break in American history to wealthy people. He even said so himself down at Mar-a-Lago. Remember when he told his friends, hey, you guys should be grateful now. I made you all, you were already rich, and I have made you that much richer. That's what Trump has done. So you're going to get on your little soapbox and with your little right-wing pranks and, try to make Joe look stupid or elderly with that go-ahead, way to go, Brandon, or whatever the hell it is. And your president, the only thing that he did was he made rich people richer, which he himself admitted to. And meanwhile, you got Joe Biden up there, literally making himself, he was old when he got into the White House, and he's making himself older, staying up at night, worrying about you working class people. And somebody needs to remind you folks about that. Because remember, the Republicans, they didn't want working class people to get a damn thing. People have fallen out left and right from the virus. Businesses are closing. Restaurants are closing. Everything's closing down. People are terrified. And what did the Republicans do? What did they want to do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the Democrats, let's be real, Democrats trying to reach out across the aisle, which they need to stop doing. You only reach across to people that want to reach back. And they're telling the Republicans, hey, my people are hurting in my district. What are we going to do? We need to do something to get money in these people's pockets. We can't let the economy sink because everything's locked up. And what do the Republicans say? They don't want to do a damn thing. No, we don't want to spend any money on this disease and its effects. Joe Biden comes in and says, hey, boom, we need to get this money out there to people to help them. And this is the guy that you're going to make fun out of. Americans, we are our own worst enemy in many occasions, and this is one of them. Trump sits up there, denigrates everything that this country is about, and basically tells working class America, you can go starve. I can't figure that out. Is race, which in itself is an imaginary subject, because there's only one race, the human race. But you got so many people out there in so-called middle America that they can't see anything else. And that's tragic. The Democrat Party is trying to feed you, keep you healthy, educate you and your kids, protect our environment. And these little clowns want to, make jokes about Brandon. My Western European friends were right. Americans have the best things, some of the best things in the world. But they don't realize how much harm they do to themselves. And that's sad. That is truly sad. And then on top of that, this guy sat in the White House for 4 years, did nothing when it comes to looking out for the welfare of working Americans. And then on top of that, he tries to take the government, tries to take over the government. You give a guy an opportunity to do some work in your house, and he doesn't do the work, and on top of that, he tries to steal the whole house. And this is the guy that you say, that this is the leader of your party. This is the guy who you say you would trust in more than Jesus Christ. The rest of the civilized world, depending upon your definition of civilized, I think that a 2024 victory of Trump, I think that would terrify them. It truly would. And something else I've been wanting to say, when Americans talk all this stuff about USA, USA, and we're great, we're this, we're that, we're free, what they're really doing, you are stealing someone else's thunder. It's just like those Republican Congress people who were telling Democrats when people needed help, and they were saying, no, we're not going to give any money, we're not going to help in any way, right? And then after the bill is signed, they want to say, well, let me go out here into mainstream America and take credit. So now they've tried to take credit for all the stuff that they were voting against. And I think it's pathetic. And with Democrats, this is what bugs me about the Democratic Party, my party. You need to get out there, they need to get out there and take some victory laps and have a sound truck and have that sound truck reminding people, this clown's coming out now saying the great work that he did. What's that, about 5 minutes we got? Oh. Okay. They want to come out and take all this great cheers, right? For stuff that they were against. It's funny. It's tragic, and it's tragic, and at the same time, it's funny. What makes it not funny is the fact that these people are actually, their own constituents, they hurt. And that's the sad part. It's just like this business with the, it's just like this business with the COVID. They're running around spitting on Fauci, spitting on doctors and scientists, spitting on the World Health Organization. And yet, and of course, spitting on the people, who want you to wear a mask in, closed settings like, school rooms, what have you. And yet, their districts, represented by Republicans, especially by Republicans who are really heavy into supporting Trump, those people are falling to the wayside like flies. And most of the biggest mouths who say, I don't believe in the virus, I don't believe in the vaccinations, I don't believe in having to wear a mask no matter where I'm at. The loudest people in that parade, you know what happened? They died from the COVID. And you would figure that by now people would realize, hey, there must be something to this COVID disease. But with many out there in so-called middle America or mainstream America, they still haven't gotten it yet. Oh, well, that's something else. It must be Black Lives Matter. They're poisoning people. You know, all these crazy, insane things. The lizard people. And that's with the QAnon folks. A man kills his two sons, his two young little sons, kills them because he said they were turning into lizards. That's QAnon. That's another part of this right-wing horror show that we have in this country. And I just wonder, when in the hell are people in America going to wake up before it's too late? When are we going to get woke? Yeah, I said it, woke, woke, woke. Because that's what you need to do. You need to get woke. And I love Bill Maher. He's one of the funniest comedians that we've had in America over the last, couple of decades. But I was brokenhearted when I saw him make a comedy thing, as he does about so many political questions that we face, and he picks the subject of woke. And I'm like, with all that we have going on, we have a political party that is determined to destroy our Constitution, destroy our form of government, who has contributed to killing almost 1 million Americans by ignoring this horrible disease. And you're telling me to take time out to discuss the meaning of woke? Woke means to get the hell up and deal with the things that we must deal with before it's too late. Folks, stay healthy. For God's sake, stay healthy. I have a very good friend. She lives over in Jersey, and she is ill with this terrible thing now. So please, take care of yourselves, take care of your family, take care of your friends. We need to start taking care of each other and stop hating each other before it's too late, before we don't have a country in America, before we don't have a USA, and just have one big pot of hate. No country, no government, just hate and sickness. So we need to take care of each other. That's the point. Listen, thank you for letting us come into your homes. And we'll be back next week, same time, same place, same channel, the Concern Forum. And I'm Robert Gumbs, and bless you all. Take care.